The Rosa Parks Memorial Award is given to a nominee who inspires others to champion the cause of human and civil rights and who has demonstrated the courage to challenge the status quo in order to achieve a just society for the disadvantaged. This year's recipient is from Georgia.
Hi, I'm Calvin Rollins, President of the Georgia Association of Educators. Georgia's nominee's name is synonymous with civil rights. Her leadership, her sacrifice, her legacy will live on in our collective memory and in our nation's history. Coretta Scott King.
When Coretta Scott King and her husband moved to Montgomery, Alabama in 1954 so that he could become pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, they didn't know what the future would hold. Both Coretta King and her husband, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., were already activists. Coretta had attended Antioch College in Ohio and later Boston's New England Conservatory and had participated in peace rallies and political and civil rights actions, so she was fully prepared to support her husband as the struggle intensified and the nation's eyes turned to Montgomery.
It was a spontaneous movement, and a lot of the activities, meetings and so forth, were held at our house.
The 1955 bus boycott, sparked by Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus, was led by Dr. King and became a turning point in the modern civil rights movement.
It was exciting when the people stood up at 50,000 strong to boycott the buses. I mean, that was so exciting because this had never happened before.
Coretta King balanced mothering with her reform work, speaking before church, civic, college, and fraternal groups. She conceived and performed a series of well-reviewed freedom concerts, helping to raise funds for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And even before her husband spoke out publicly against the Vietnam War, Mrs. King served as a liaison to peace and justice groups during those turbulent times. After her husband's assassination in 1968, Mrs. King founded and built the Atlanta-based Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change as a living memorial to her husband's life and dream. Coretta King also spearheaded the massive educational and lobbying campaign to establish Dr. King's birthday as a national holiday. She finally succeeded when President Reagan signed the bill establishing the holiday in 1983. Throughout her life, Mrs. King carried the message of nonviolence and the beloved community to almost every corner of the nation and globe. She led goodwill missions to many countries in Africa, Latin America, Europe, and Asia. In 1985, Coretta King was arrested at the South African embassy for protesting apartheid. She was at Cesar Chavez's side at his farm workers' rallies, and she also spoke out in favor of gay rights, an action that was criticized by many African American pastors. But Mrs. King was steadfast in her support of LGBT rights, reminding others that Dr. King's message to the world was one of equality and inclusion. Coretta Scott King's message of peace and equality lives on. She helped change the course of our nation with her perseverance, determination, and love.
You have an inner peace and a satisfaction if you feel that you are doing the right thing and doing what God intends for you to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us this evening to accept the award is Coretta Scott King's cousin, Renee McMurray.
I am honored to be here to thank the National Education Association for honoring Coretta Scott King with this award. Many people are unaware that while achieving worldwide recognition, Mrs. King also began to mentor young ladies from the next generation. I am blessed to have been one of those young ladies. Coretta's family sacrificed and set high educational standards. In fact, her mother often stated, "My children will be educated even if it means I have to wear the same dress." When Mrs. King founded the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, the official living memorial in honor of her husband, programs were instituted based upon Dr. King's philosophy to equip and empower others to live nonviolently. Today, her daughter, Dr. Bernice A. King, as CEO of the King Center, continues that legacy by reaching out to others, especially the next generation, through the Choose Nonviolence campaign. I believe that if my cousin Coretta were here today to accept this award, she would encourage the NEA to work with the King Center to incorporate Dr. King's principles into the educational system for all of our nation's schools, so that future generations might truly experience a nonviolent America and world. In the spirit of Coretta Scott King, Rosa Parks, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., let's continue the movement and choose nonviolence. Thank you.